Hello everyone, welcome to the bar. Please take your seats. Staff will be with you shortly to take your orders and enjoy your evening's entertainment. Now today and tonight is Dungeons and Dragons night at the bar. So, we will be looking through some funny D&D memes that I have taken and what was the word? Curated from Dndmemes Reddit. So if you guys enjoy these, go check them out directly at the subreddit itself because some of these are really good. Now, let's begin. The first meme was submitted by the Acidic Sniper Live. Take that, Satanic Panic. Dungeons and Dragons can help treat depression, anxiety, and more. Parents and Churches from 1985. Impossible. Nah. Thank you, the Acidic Sniper Life, for this meme. I do enjoy Dungeons and Dragons, and although I started playing before that, or actually after the whole Satanic Panic thing happened, I've heard that back then people were a little bit more, what's the word? Distrusting of Dungeons and Dragons in general. It's a bit sad because it really does, in a way, help to bring out confidence in people. Because when when the whole game is about role playing and acting out as a character from certain from game roles and stuff like that, it tends to bring you into a new level of thinking. I don't know. I don't know what I'm even saying right now, but basically, it helps to give you confidence. And I'm saying this from personal experience because I was like that. I've seen introverted people, including myself, who have gone through the whole tabletop RPG thing, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or Star Wars RPG at Age of the Empire, or even some other tabletop RPGs that have come out. And from being players, playing as that character, you slowly start to create or build up this confidence in you that you never thought you ever had before. And I've seen this not just in my own players that I have at my table, I've seen this in myself. I've seen myself be this really shy, really not so what's the word? I was that player that at the start I was really not into the game. Not that I wasn't interested, but I was just scared to interact. And then slowly, as I played through the campaigns and stuff, I slowly started to build up my confidence. And towards the end of that first campaign, I was that player that was talking to the dungeon master whenever there's a describing of a scene. So there's this chandelier. There. I would like my character to check for traps and all that kind of stuff. So I've seen Dungeons and Dragons really does help bring out people's confidence slowly. And I'm speaking that especially for myself because I went from being a player in Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop RPGs to becoming a dungeon master myself. And I've been a dungeon master for 6 years now. So this really is the first that's peak Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop RPG right there. Slowly going from a player to dungeon master role, and from playing the game to running your own game. So nowadays, this whole Dungeons and Dragons Satanic Panic thing, obviously, it is not something that happens now very often nowadays. And I'm glad for that. I'm glad that more people are more open to playing tabletop RPGs because it really does give you a new perspective, especially for people who want to escape into fantasy or sci-fi realms and just play out another life altogether, you know? So, firstly, thank you, the Acidic Sniper Live, for this meme. This one is by Mimikyu Dreamer. Thank you, Mimikyu Dreamer. Your tactics confuse and frighten me, sir. Me, wanting to harvest the tongues of the giant frogs we killed to use the saliva for glue and traps. The rest of the party and the dungeon master. I've had players who actually tried to do stuff like this. You may think it's weird, but if it works, it's not weird. I mean, it's still weird, but it's not stupid. And those players really are the kind of players that give you the most enjoyment as a dungeon master, because they challenge your understanding of how the game could possibly go. And they it's not like derailing the game, but they come up with this really creative ways of playing through certain aspects of the game, and it really adds to the experience. And I enjoy having players like that in my campaign. Thank you, Mimikyu Dreamer, for this meme. Awesome stuff. The Canadian Guy. Thank you for this meme. Based on an old meme I saw, an ancient red dragon at full health. Our level 20 barbarian who's winning the solo fight. Epic fights like this, especially when you've reached that point in the campaign, with like characters already being level 20, or they are at a certain level where certain monsters wouldn't really affect them anymore. I'm not even talking about the Tarrasque, of course. That's a different story. The ancient red dragon at full health. I won't exactly say that an ancient red dragon would be equivalent to a level 20 barbarian, because a level 20 barbarian is... there is a lot of... Oh, by the way, thank you, Raven2, for following. I appreciate it. There is a lot of players who have reached that level, and their damage that they can deal is super crazy. So I don't even think an ancient red dragon at full health is going to be much of a challenge. I guess that's why the barbarian is symbolized as All Might. Nomu was also no challenge for him. Maybe the barbarian is a bit weaker than normal, but doesn't matter, because when they rage, I've had players who fought almost unwinnable battles, whether it's a barbarian or some other class, and they have come out completely on top. And I've gone through the encounter as a DM thinking there's no way they're gonna win this, and then they do, and I start thinking to myself, I need to find a way to balance my encounters more. Because that is unacceptable. Thank you, the Canadian Guy, for this meme. I thought that you said your patron was a devil. But I've seen you do nothing but good for people. Are you lying to us? As per my agreement with my devil patron, I must do good deeds for people and receive nothing, so that they owe me favors, and then I will return later with my patron, so that he can convince them to give us their souls. Now. One of the best things I love about warlocks in my game, whether it's especially for warlocks that have the fiend patron or devil patron, for those of you who... devils are very tricky creatures, and using them effectively in Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop RPGs in general, whether it's Pathfinder or D&D or other homebrew stuff you've made, can be really interesting for the characters, for the players when they play. Because when you utilize a very good devil character, especially when it comes to making deals with the players, it's fun to see, or try to imagine how they think of ways to get out of that situation where it's like a deal with the devil, basically. Which is one of the main reasons why recently I played Descent into Avernus, the new Dungeons and Dragons module by Wizards of the Coast. Do check it out if you guys are really interested in these kind of devil kind of campaigns. And Descent into Avernus was a really fun campaign with my players. I've had player who was a warlock with a devil patron who actually met their devil patron in Avernus, and of course this was a continuation part from a previous campaign they had, and it was really interesting seeing how he and the other players actually tried to find a way to get him out of that contract deal that he has with his patron, because I believe he wanted to switch patrons, because at that point they actually met a eldritch being, and the warlock wanted to switch patrons. Of course, devils aren't known for being overly fond of you breaking contracts, so that was something else. As for this, the whole my patron wants people's souls thing, it's a very well thought out way of overcoming the whole aren't you supposed to be an evil warlock or lawful evil kind of person? Why are you doing good deeds kind of thing? You never know. Maybe that warlock is just really nice, or maybe, just maybe, there was an ulterior motive. Thank you for the meme. I really enjoy it. Hold on. I can't see the name. Armorian. Armorian, thank you for the meme. Thank you so much. This meme was made by Hey Beck. Thank you for this meme. Every time, party's carefully laid out plan. The party. I got you, brother. Oh no, you don't. So many times, not just for the party, but for me. I've had plans I laid out for players that, of course, as a dungeon master, I can roll behind the screen. But sometimes, like when I'm playing online nowadays, on Roll20 or something, and I roll on screen, I like to do that, and I get a 1. It really makes for some really comedic effects with the players. But when players have a 1 or critical fail, per se, it gets to hilarious results, depending on the players, of course. I actually had one story. I think my player, if he's watching this later on in the VOD, he's definitely going to want me to tell the story, because this was a act of pure betrayal on my part as DM. So what happened was, I had a player who was playing as a barbarian, and what happened was he has this warhammer, warforged, really nice hammer that he got from his village or something like that. And it was like some ancestral hammer that he keeps with him. So this player, what happened was, in the middle of a fight in a forge, he wanted to throw the hammer at the enemy, kind of like what Thor does in the Avengers. He wanted to throw the hammer at the enemy, and then, you know, have the hammer hit them square in the chest kind of thing, right? Guess what he got? A natural 1. And he looked at me and asked me what actually happened. So he still hates me for this. I basically just told him, so you threw the hammer, right, at the enemy? So this is a forge. The forge has a molten lava. It's a molten lava forge, right? Your hammer falls into the molten lava and you never see it again. He just stared at me like, you mean I lost my hammer? Yes, you're gonna have to find a new one. Admittedly, that was probably not for the best, and admittedly, that was one of my first campaigns I ran, and I was a bit of a dick DM at that point. So, of course, in the end, I did give him back a different hammer. He was really attached to the hammer for some reason. I'm not gonna question it. I did give him back a different hammer, a magical hammer this time, that actually returns to him even if he misses an enemy. So something like this doesn't happen again. And no, it didn't happen again. Thank you, Hayvek. This meme refers to almost every single Dungeons and Dragons campaign at least one time. This is from Oregon IT, or Oregon Rolled a 20 on Twitter. Your player's so dumb that they got stumped by a puzzle meant for third graders. So you had the character with the highest intelligence score roll to see if the character would have figured it out by now. My rule as a DM is that if I'm going to make a puzzle, I probably should be able to solve it myself. Which is why I stick to riddles. I am bad at puzzles. This is what happens when you have a intelligence modifier score or intelligence score in real life of 10 and below, which is me. I usually don't make my players try to solve puzzles. I do try to include for some puzzles for experience sake for my players, and to have them, and so that they can, you know, have fun with it, especially if it's a group that really likes to have their intelligence tested. Puzzles are a good way to do so, or for my case, riddles. Because if I'm going to make them do puzzles, I'm just going to ask them to roll for it. I did, however, once at the near the start of my time as a DM, did make my players roll for puzzles. No, not roll for puzzles. Make them try to solve puzzles. And that puzzle session was one of the longest D&D sessions I've ever ran, for the simple fact that they were stuck on that puzzle for 30 minutes. After that, I told myself that because I couldn't solve the puzzle either. So I told myself, if I can't solve puzzles, then I shouldn't make my players solve puzzles either. Thank you, Oregon IT. Love that meme. DN Doge. When the encounter is balanced and well thought out, but everyone rolls shit, and it slowly turns into a TPK. Thank you, Spirentis. This is why, as DMs, there is such a thing called rolling behind the screen. If I see an encounter with my players going south, I will immediately start fumbling my rolls behind the screen. Even if I'm on Roll20, I will roll secretly, or I will just pretend to roll, and then I will tell them that, oh, the enemy got a 5. Don't worry, you're fine for this round. What's your AC? 10? Yeah, the enemy doesn't hit. I mean, if it's something really serious, like an encounter which they initiated, or some other form of players were being stupid kind of thing, maybe I would actually be okay with TPK, but usually I'm one of those DMs that don't like to TPK my party. And so if I see it really going south, I will... Of course, the exception would be players who actually want to play a hyper-realistic campaign where stuff that happens really happens and your characters are gone. This all depends on what your party really wants, of course. In this case, or in most cases, I try to avoid completely wiping out the party. If 1 or 2 players go down, and if it's like a 4-person party, if 1 or 2 players go down, that's the limit for me. I'm not gonna go further than that. I'm not, or the furthest I've went is a 5-person party and 4 of them went down. Last person was knocked unconscious, and it was considered a TPK, but I didn't kill them. They were captured by the enemy. So for Dungeon Masters, if you want to be able to TPK your party without killing them outright, you can have them be sort of, you were knocked unconscious, and then the bad guys dragged you into a prison and took away all your stuff. That also works. You could do that and still keep your party in the running. Of course, that is assuming the enemy actually wants to take prisoners. If it's a fight with a demon or ancient dragon or stuff, or monsters that normally wouldn't take people prisoner, you're gonna have to find some kind of justification for that. Maybe they have cultists that want to use the players as sacrifices or something along that line. just understand that not all players want to get TPK'd. It kind of ruins the experience for some of them. Do let me know in the comments if you rather not be TPK'd as a player, or if you're a dungeon master, whether you're okay with doing the TPK thing. Because I know different dungeon masters have different ways of doing things. Yeah. Thank you, Spirentis, for this meme. This meme made by Philip97X. Thank you, Philip. You killed my family and left me an orphan to fend on the streets for myself. Every edgy D&D character ever. Who are you? You killed my father. You have the slightest idea how little that narrows it down. Continuing off what I mentioned in my previous Forever DM Reacts video, I don't really mind if you as a player decide to have characters who with edgy backstories or stuff like that. I really don't mind, and I can incorporate it into my game. Of course, I'm not gonna do stuff like this, but it's kind of fun sometimes where players do have edgy backstories, and as the DM, I kind of ruin it for them. I don't really have a specific example of me doing this, because some of the times where I actually do that, I kind of forgot about it. Because I don't stick with that. It wasn't such a memorable moment for me. But I definitely have done stuff like this before. Thank you, Flip90x97x, for this meme. Yes, Xander the Grim. We all misinterpret rules sometimes. Rules lawyer. Well, actually, players who misinterpret the game mechanic. Remember, people, Dungeons and Dragons, the rules are more like guidelines. Now, I do have rules lawyer players before. I usually tell them, keep the rules lawyering to a minimum. I do enjoy and I do appreciate that you try to keep, especially if the party's new or there are some new players that don't really know how to play D&D. It's always good to have that one guy who knows what he's doing. But don't go overboard. Don't go to the point where it's like you tell people, no, this is not how it's not how you're gonna do it. The rule of cool can be used at certain points, especially if it makes the campaign more memorable. And at certain points, rules lawyering can also be acceptable. Just don't go too overboard. There should be a moderation. Thank you, Xander the Grim, for this meme. Ah, yes. But we come here all the time. Thank you, Flabbertrigger, for this meme. When the shopkeeper won't drop the price from 300 platinum to 300 copper. Cowabunga it is. I've never had a NPC shopkeeper who would price something at 300 platinum. I really never had any. Not even if it's a black market arms dealer or whatever, stuff like that. That's a bit exorbitant. If a shopkeeper has that kind of pricing for you, you should probably start questioning whether this person is some front for, or if he's the baby EG himself. And in this instance, I would actually say pretty warranted. Trying to get the price cut. Maybe not to 300 copper. Maybe silver should be okay. I really do enjoy this Michelangelo meme from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's really versatile and it can be used for so many funny stuff. Thank you, Amurium, for this meme. Maybe I'll eventually be happy with it. Veteran DMs who homebrew their worlds. Fantasy novel honors. Whatever I'm doing, trying to make my homebrew world without taking everything from the Forgotten Realms. I have to admit, I do enjoy homebrewing campaigns or making homebrew worlds. But most of the time, whether I'm playing Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons, I'm usually really really lazy in creating worlds, so I just kind of model everything after Faerun, or I just put the campaign directly in Faerun itself. I've had really memorable campaigns where it doesn't have to be homebrew. It could just be the Forgotten Realms itself, and you're still gonna have fun. Yeah, I know. But of course, if you want to make your own homebrew world, go ahead. It doesn't even if you take ideas from other stuff. A lot of things, a lot of fantasy novels, especially, have really good ideas you could take from. I do remember in the previous video that I made about Forever DM Reacts to Dndmemes, I did mention that I took mechanics from Lord of the Rings, and yeah, it's completely acceptable. Whether it's mechanics or lore settings, whether it's Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, or if it's a sci-fi world, Star Trek, Star Wars. Dungeons & Dragons has a lot of outlets for you, whether it's fantasy or sci-fi, to take stuff from different sources, and it's completely fine as long as you make it work in your world and your players enjoy it. So, Armorion, thank you for this meme. This is from Flip97X again. Or as one of my friends said, they were not innocent, they were in the way. The party, while sitting in prison, realizing that they didn't have to attack and kill innocent guards who were just doing their job and they couldn't convince them. Are we murder hobos, sir? Like I said in the previous Dndmemes Forever DM Reacts, I've never had a party who are murder hobos before. I hope I never have to have that kind of party. Most of my parties are either really timid, or some of the more veteran adventuring parties are not murder hobos. They love role-playing and they take the campaign seriously. Not too seriously, of course, sometimes they do joke, but never to the extent where they have decided to kill whole guards in cities because they know that if it's a proper DM who's doing it, or if it's a DM that doesn't really like to have their setting ruined, we will have consequences for murdering the guards. If you're gonna kill guards, you're gonna become wanted by the whole, especially if it's a big city or even in a village. You're gonna have wanted posters of you everywhere by next week. So thank you, Philip97X, for this meme. I really hope I never have to DM for murder hobos ever. This one was made by, oh my gosh, Lord Helix himself. When you're being addicted to the DM and suddenly hears him rolling a dice. I got paranoia, baby. For me, okay, being addicted to the DM can sometimes be fun to do, especially if it's done in a joking manner and if you're friends. And of course, if you guys are good friends, usually what happens next, the DM is probably gonna screw you over. So yeah, I've had players who actually tried to do this kind of stuff before. I do have a story regarding this, which I will leave for the end of the video, and that will be the last story that I tell before I end this video. So firstly, thank you Lord Helix himself for this meme. Really appreciate it. And this should be, I think, the last meme after this. This one, yes, made by Derexia Tree. I'm sorry if I can't read the names properly. It's really small. The perennial Matt Mercer effect discussion popped up again, so I made this part 1 of a few. I want a DM like Matt Mercer. I want players who stay in character and don't metagame. Both of these things are not mutually exclusive. The Dungeon Master is in charge of creating and telling the story, and basically making the setting for the players to play in. The players are also important, or have a very important role to make sure that the campaign goes smoothly as well. This Dungeons and Dragons is not a one-way street. both the dungeon master and the players, if you guys want to have fun, need to be on the same page. If the DM is okay with metagaming, then he's okay with metagaming. If the DM is not okay with metagaming, then don't metagame. It's really up to how the party and the DM discuss about things. Especially, this is why it's important to have session 0 or a pre-session where you discuss about what the expectations of the game campaign really is. It takes two to clap. Both DM and players need to work together to make the campaign work. So if you want a DM like Matt Mercer, then you're going to have to be a group of players like the rest of the Critical Role crew. Don't ask the DM to be Matt Mercer if you're not going to play like the Critical Role crew. Yeah? Fair enough? So, great meme. Thank you so much for this. And this is the last meme, I believe. Yep, this is the last meme. So, about that story before. So, before this meme, I did mention that I have a story regarding players who pissed off the DM, which is me. And this same story is the one where this same party was the party I mentioned in the previous Dndmemes React video, which is the party that I sicked a room of mimics on. If you want to check it out on my YouTube. I mentioned this story, and it was about this group of players that I had, where they were exploring a underground dungeon maze with a treasure at the end, and they accidentally stumbled into a room full of mimics. They survived their encounter, but they made me swear that I would never put a room full of mimics in the campaign ever again. They have faced mimics after that in campaign, but not to the extent where every single furniture in the room is a mimic. That was a one-time thing. Now, at the end of that story, I mentioned that yes, I didn't put them into a room full of mimics again. However, I did send them into a ghost town that was supposed to be a ghost town, but somehow was a lively town full of doppelgangers. So doppelgangers are a very sneaky creature / monster in the Forgotten Realms, or in the realm of Pathfinder, whichever one you play. And I played it in that way that this town was supposed to be dead, like nobody was supposed to live there anymore, because something bad happened to it a couple years prior in the campaign. But suddenly, the town started to be bustling again, and there was a lot of activity, but strange disappearances happened in town. So the players were sent there to try and figure out more about this town and the people who live there. And when they arrive, one of the main things that they realized, when they arrived, they actually arrived on the back of a carriage with a driver who used to frequent the town a lot. So the townspeople were all seemed perfectly normal people. They were all nice townsfolk, all cheery, said hi to the players and everything. It was halfway through the campaign adventure at that point, where the carriage driver that brought them to that town mentioned something to the players that really started to get them spooked. And this was after one of my players haunted me, because the previous encounter they had was pretty easy, and he said, "Was that the best encounter you could throw at us?" So I said, let's turn it up a notch. Let's make them face a town full of doppelgangers. I probably went a little to the extreme, but they never tried to challenge the whole is that the worst encounter you can do thing. So don't think of me as a bad DM, really. I didn't do it on purpose, and once again, this is a group of friends that I usually play with, and we had a lot of fun. And eventually they did challenge that. Was that the worst encounter you can do ever again? But that's another time. So for this town, right after that, when they arrive here, the carriage driver mentioned something about how some of the townsfolk were people he remembered from the early days of the town, And it was really creepy because they look exactly the same as when they were 50 years ago. So that's when my players started to get spooked. And just nice, this game of D&D that I played with them, with this doppelganger ghost town, was right around Halloween. Go figure. And so the players started to get spooked. And they went into the cellar of the tavern of the town, and that's where they find all the bodies of the people who used to live there. And some of them they recognized us on the surface above, and then that's when they realized, a town full of doppelgangers. What? So they tried to escape from the town, and doppelgangers tried to stop them. Almost had a party wipe, including that player that was the one that mentioned was that the worst encounter I could throw at them. He almost got wiped as well. Not by me. Blame the dice. So after that, they decided to burn the whole town down. And it was reported back to the kingdom that this town was never to be touched again because it was full of doppelgangers and stuff. They did get rewarded for it in the end because they did solve the mystery. But they did get some of their pay cut because they burned down the whole town. They're not murder hobos, okay? It was just a panicked solution for a problem that should have been able to be solved without that kind of violence. So yes, that's it for this episode of Forever DM Reacts to D&D memes. If you guys, I will be uploading this VOD to my YouTube channel. And on there, if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And also, I would like to end with a question regarding what is one of the most epic D&D moments in your D&D campaign. If you ever played D&D, leave them in the comments down below in the video. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Thank you all so much for coming to the bar. For those of you who did drink, leave your glasses on the bar counter before you leave. Don't forget your belongings as you exit out through the door, and have a safe trip home. See you all next time, everyone. Bye bye.